What's going on? It's SFT. We're talking about the Panthers today. And the Panthers have had an overall tough season. Injuries on defense, offensively, just struggling. Bryce Young issues. You have Andy Dalton come in, look great against that Raiders game. People were talking about how Bryce Young just isn't good enough. After that, you start to see a hard decline in Andy Dalton's performance at the quarterback position. Some really tough offensive play calling, poor defensive play calling, poor players in general. It's been a tough season for the damn Panthers. But the last 3 games against the Saints, against the Giants, and against the Chiefs have shown something a little bit better. In terms of against the Giants and the Saints, maximizing the offensive production in terms of running the football at a high level, throwing the ball here and there, really precise passes, being able to maximize the passing game with the receivers you currently have that aren't the best in general, but we're going to be getting into what they look like against the damn Chiefs. Play calling wise, I wasn't a big fan. I'm not a big fan of Dave Canales' play calling, and I'm definitely not a big fan of their receiver group. Their receiver group is just bad. I don't care what anybody tells me. If your number one receiver is 34-year-old Adam Thielen, something messed up. And if he's injured, your number one receiver then becomes Xavier Legette? Are we being serious? There's no way we're being serious right here. The guy's dropping balls, still developing. He's not a guy you need to be relying on. There's not a lot of teams that bring in a guy from the second round pick and say, you're our number one receiver right away. It simply doesn't make sense. Obviously, they brought in the Steelers receiver, traded him later on in the season. It's just a bad decision overall to bring him in. You just wasted a 4th round pick, I believe. But I think that Bryce Young, for the last couple of games, have played really good. You look at the Saints game, somebody can say, yes, he didn't have the most passing yards, similar to the Giants situation. However, he is maximizing the play calling. The big issue I have in terms of Dave Canales' play calling, there's not a lot of free chunk plays. When I watch guys like Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, at times Jalen Hurts, some of the top quarterbacks in the NFL, they have a lot of plays that are easy plays where guys get open easy. You're not supposed to be consistently throwing in a window. That is not feasible. It doesn't make sense. If we were to compare Bryce Young to his counterpart, CJ Stroud, he's throwing to far better receivers who are getting open far more and are overall playing at a higher level. But when you're not able to get the same level of separation, things become hard. Not just for your quarterback because they have to throw into that window, but your receivers have to catch the ball in contact, make the catch, keep their feet inbound. It's extremely difficult. It's not feasible. That's a big issue I've had the last 2 games in terms of the Giants, the Saints. A lot of these passes he has to make are tough passes. They're not easy passes. Guys are not breaking out of coverage. The play calling needs to be better. Last game against the Chiefs, I thought the play calling was very good. I still don't like the fact that number 83 Moore is your semi-number 1 receiver. Sanders went down, I believe, with a neck injury. Your receiver group looks so poor. I think the Panthers have the weakest receiver group in the NFL, by far. Their number 1 receiver wouldn't be the 2nd receiver on most given football teams. He'd be lucky to be the 3rd on a good football team. Xavier Legette is just not ready yet. Coker is just not ready yet. He was injured too. So you have guys who aren't bad receivers, but they aren't great. They're definitely not number 1 guys. You need to go into this free agency and get a number 1 guy and stop playing games. Your running game is good. Your O-line has shown great improvement. You spent big money there. Go get yourself a number 1 receiver and stop playing games, man. I don't want to see Adam Thielen as your number 1 receiver. I'm tired of them talking post-game about how much has Adam Thielen added to the team. He's Adam Thielen. What? The Vikings got rid of him 4 years ago. You guys are just salivating over Adam Thielen. He's old. He's 33, 34 years old. Something like that. I think he's 33, 34. I could care less. He's old. He doesn't get the separation. He's not fast enough. His hands aren't bad, and his route running isn't bad, but it's not making up for his lack of athleticism, that lack of explosion, what consistent injuries do to you over time. And you don't have a number 1 receiver you're playing beside. Adam Thielen has never been the number 1 receiver. He played with Stephon Diggs. I believe he played with Justin Jefferson. He was never the number 1 receiver for a prolonged period of time. Why the hell are you bringing a solidified number 2 receiver at that and expecting him to be your number 1 receiver? Crazy. But going into this offseason, I expect for them to do many things. The Panthers do have a tough schedule left, so I do expect them to lose a couple of more games, hit the draft, go upgrade on either receiver, which I definitely expect them to do. There's some really solid receivers coming out into this draft. Go pick yourself up a number 1 receiver, or at least a downfield option that's going to take the top off, like Shaheed does for the Saints, or the Chiefs' 1st round pick does for them. You need a guy that can take off the top, or you need a guy that is an elite technician that can consistently get open. So a guy like Bryce Young doesn't have to keep throwing into these tight windows. Last game, he looked excellent under blitz. The ball, the anticipation, is just, when I think about Bryce Young, Alabama Bryce Young, I'm a big fan of Bryce Young, especially at Alabama. I think about last game. That is what he can do. And he could have had more yards. If Xavier legit caught that ball, that's an extra 40, 50 yards. In the red zone, he hit 83 right in the hands. That could have been a touchdown. So you're leaving a lot of these drives with 3 rather than 6. But your receivers are not getting open. The play calling has to be money. And my final point is, your receivers aren't good enough to make your play calling look good. You have to play call at a high level to make up for the lack of separation, the lack of quality you're getting from your receivers. That's why you need good receivers to match good play calling. So when your play calling isn't the best, they're able to make plays for you. Last year you had Mike Evans, you had Godwin, you had some really good receivers. What the hell do you have on the Panthers? This Panthers team needs to go get some better receivers, upgrade that damn defense. That defense, let your defensive lineman, I believe he got injured, tore his ACL, something like that. He had a season-ending injury. He's going to come back, upgrade your defense, make a serious push towards next year. Going into next year, what competition do you really have in the NFC South? The Saints aren't going to do much with Derek Carr. You have Kirk Cousins and the Atlanta Falcons finding ways to lose football games. You have the Buccaneers who could actually make a push, but outside of that, you should look at this NFC South next year and say, we're going to make a serious push. We need to capitalize and fill the holes that we currently have in our team. Get the depth that we need and get the quality that we need at the receiver core. Get the quality that we need on defense, especially on that defensive line. People are running the football far too easy. You might need to add an extra defensive lineman or two. Get some more pressure because you're one of the worst pressure teams in the NFL. Your linebacking core, I believe, is pretty damn good. They fail due to the lack of pressure and the inability to stop the running back at the line of scrimmage. Outside of that, their secondary isn't the best. Outside of Horn, I'm not looking at guys who are performing at a high level. So you got to bring in some guys in that secondary, but that's all I really had to say for this video. Subscribe, like, peace.